Gary Wayne Coleman was an American actor, voice artist, and comedian, best known for his role as Arnold Jackson in Diff'rent Strokes and for his small stature as an adult. He was described in the 1980s as one of television's most promising stars. After a successful childhood acting career, Coleman struggled financially later in life. In 1989, he successfully sued his parents and business advisor over misappropriation of his assets, only to declare bankruptcy a decade later. On May 28, 2010, Coleman died of epidural hematoma at age 42. Early life. Coleman was born Gary Wayne Coleman in Zion, Illinois, outside Chicago, on February 8, 1968. He was adopted by W. G. Coleman, a forklift operator, and Edmund Iesu, a nurse practitioner. He suffered from focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, an autoimmune kidney disease. Because of his chronic illness, combined with the corticosteroids and other medications used to treat it, his growth was limited to 4 feet 8 in, and his face retained a childlike appearance well into adulthood. He underwent 2 unsuccessful kidney transplants in 1973 and 1984, and required daily dialysis. Career. In 1974, Coleman's career began when he appeared in a commercial for Harris Bank. His line was, "You should have a Hubert doll." Hubert was a stuffed lion representing the Harris Bank logo. The same year, he appeared in an episode of Medical Center. While best known for his role on Diff'rent Strokes, Coleman had appeared earlier on television, on The Jeffersons as Raymond, George Jefferson's nephew, and on Good Times as Penny's friend Gary. He also appeared in a 1977 pilot for a revival of The Little Rascals as Stymie. VH1 rated Coleman first on a list of 100 greatest child stars on television. Diff'rent Strokes. Coleman was cast in the role of Arnold Jackson in Diff'rent Strokes, portraying one of 2 black brothers from Harlem adopted by a wealthy white widower in Manhattan. The series was broadcast from 1978 to 1986. He became the most popular fixture of the series, enhanced by his character's catchphrase, "What you talkin' 'bout, Willis?" At the height of his fame on Diff'rent Strokes, he earned as much as $100,000 per episode. A Biography Channel documentary estimated he was left with a quarter of the original amount after paying his parents, advisors, lawyers, and taxes. He later successfully sued his parents and his former advisors for misappropriation of his finances and was awarded $1.3 million. According to Todd Bridges' autobiography Killing Willis, Coleman was made to work long hours on the set of Diff'rent Strokes, despite his age and health problems, and this contributed to his being unhappy and separating himself from the cast. Later character appearances. Coleman became a popular figure, starring in a number of feature films and television films, including On the Right Track and The Kid with the Broken Halo. The latter eventually served as the basis for The Gary Coleman Show in 1982. He also made video game appearances in The Curse of Monkey Island and Postal 2. In 2005, Coleman appeared in John Cena's music video for his single, Bad, Bad Man. Coleman played himself as a villain taking Michael Jackson and Madonna hostage. The video was a spoof of 80s culture, focusing on the A-Team candidacy for governor of California. In the 2003 California recall election, Coleman was a candidate for governor. This campaign was sponsored by the free news weekly East Bay Express as a satirical comment on the recall. After Arnold Schwarzenegger declared his candidacy, Coleman announced that he would vote for Schwarzenegger. He placed 8th in a field of 135 candidates, receiving 14,242 votes. Avenue Q. Coleman is parodied in Avenue Q, which won the 2004 Tony Award for Best Musical. A character presented as Coleman works as the superintendent of the apartment complex where the musical takes place. In the song, It Sucks to Be Me, he laments his fate. On Broadway, the role was originally portrayed by Natalie Venetia Belcon. The show's creators Jeff Marks and Robert Lopez have said that the Coleman character is a personification of one of Avenue Q's central themes. That as children we are told we are special. But upon entering adulthood we discover that life is not nearly as easy as we have been led to believe. They added that they originally considered asking Coleman himself to play the Gary Coleman role, and he expressed interest in accepting it, but never showed up for a meeting scheduled to discuss it. In 2005, Coleman announced his intention to sue the producers of Avenue Q for their depiction of him, although the lawsuit never materialized. At the 2007 New York Comic Con, Coleman said, "I wish there was a lawyer on earth that would sue them for me, personal life." In a 1993 television interview, Coleman said he had twice attempted suicide by overdosing on pills. Around the same time he was living in Denver, Colorado, where he hosted a Sunday night show on local radio station KHIH titled Gary Coleman's Colorado High, in which he played light jazz and new age music. He gave his salary to the Colorado Kidney Foundation. In 2005, Coleman moved from Los Angeles to Santa Keen, a small town about 50 miles south of Salt Lake City, Utah, where he lived for the remainder of his life. In early 2007 he met Shannon Price, 22, on the set of the film Church Ball, where she was working as an extra. Price and Coleman married several months later. Nevertheless, they divorced in August 2008. Citing irreconcilable differences, and Coleman was granted an ex parte restraining order against Price to prevent her from living in his home when he was hospitalized after their divorce. According to a court petition later filed by Price, she and Coleman continued to live together in a common-law marriage until his death. However, a judge ultimately ruled against Price after hearing evidence that she carried on affairs with other men during the time she claimed to be with Coleman, and moreover, physically abused Coleman in public, led him around by the hand like a child, and displayed no physical affection toward him in front of anyone. Financial struggles. In August 1999, Coleman filed for bankruptcy protection. Multiple people, he said, were responsible for his insolvency. From me, to accountants, to my adoptive parents, to agents, to lawyers, and back to me again. Ongoing medical expenses contributed significantly to Coleman's chronic financial problems, and compelled him, at times, to resort to unusual fundraising activities. In 2008, for example, he auctioned an autographed pair of his trousers on eBay to help pay his medical bills. The auction attracted considerable attention, including fake bids up to $400,000. The trousers were eventually bought for $500 by comedian Jimmy Kimmel, who famously hung them from the rafters of his television studio. Legal troubles. In 1989, Coleman sued his adoptive parents and former business advisor for $3.8 million over misappropriation of his trust fund, and won a $1,280,000 judgment in 1993. In 1998, Coleman was charged with assault while he was working as a security guard. Tracy Fields, a Los Angeles bus driver and fan of Coleman's work on Different Strokes, approached him and requested his autograph while he was shopping for a bulletproof vest in a California mall. Coleman refused to give her an autograph. An argument ensued, and Fields reportedly mocked Coleman's lackluster career as an actor. Coleman punched Fields in the face several times in front of witnesses. He was arrested and later testified in court that she threatened him and he defended himself. "She wouldn't leave me alone. I was getting scared, and she was getting ugly," he said. Coleman pleaded no contest to one count of assault, received a suspended jail sentence, and was ordered to pay Fields' $1,665 hospital bill, as well as take anger management classes. In 2007, Coleman was cited for misdemeanor disorderly conduct in Provo, Utah after a heated discussion in public with his wife. In 2008, Coleman was involved in an automobile accident after an altercation at a Payson, Utah bowling alley which began when Colt Rushton, age 24, photographed Coleman without his permission, the two men argued, according to witnesses. Rushton was treated at a local hospital for minor injuries and released. Coleman later pleaded no contest to charges of disorderly conduct and reckless driving, and was fined $100. In 2010, he settled a civil suit related to the incident for an undisclosed amount. In 2009, Coleman and Price were involved in a domestic dispute, after which his ex-wife was arrested on suspicion of domestic violence, and both parties were cited for disorderly conduct. In January 2010, he was arrested on an outstanding domestic assault warrant in Santakeen, booked into the Utah County Jail, and released the following day. Trains and model railroading. Coleman was an avid rail fan, model railroader, and supporter of Amtrak. He became interested in trains sometime before the age of 5 during his frequent train trips to Chicago in support of his burgeoning acting career. Fans often saw him at stores specializing in model trains in areas in which he lived, and he worked part-time at Denver area, Tucson area, and California hobby stores to be around his hobby. Coleman built and maintained miniature railroads in his homes in several states. One of his train layouts appears in the September 1990 issue of Railroad Model Craftsman. Coleman is photographed on the front cover, with his Rio Grande layout. He preferred to model in Hoe scale, but modeled in other scales as well. One such model railroad was over 800 square feet in size. Currently, at least one of Coleman's model railroads is being preserved in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Death and memorial. Very few details of Coleman's medical history have been made public. His short stature stemmed from congenital autoimmune kidney disease and its treatment. He underwent at least 2 kidney transplants early in his life and required frequent dialysis, which he preferred not to discuss. In 2009, Coleman underwent heart surgery, details of which were never made public, but he was known to have developed pneumonia post-operatively. In January 2010, Coleman was hospitalized after a seizure in Los Angeles, and in February he suffered another seizure on the set of the Insider television program. On May 26, 2010, Coleman was admitted to Utah Valley Regional Medical Center in Provo, Utah in critical condition after falling down the stairs at his home in Santakeen and hitting his head, possibly after another seizure, and suffering an epidural hematoma. According to a hospital spokesman, Coleman was conscious and lucid the next morning, but his condition subsequently worsened. By mid-afternoon on May 27, he was unconscious and on life support. He died at 12:05 p.m. MDT on May 28 at the age of 42. The casts of the off-Broadway production of Avenue Q in New York City and the Avenue Q National Tour in Dallas dedicated their May 28 performances to his memory, and the actors playing the Coleman role paid tribute to him from the stage at the performance's conclusions. The weekend after Coleman's death, a scheduled funeral was postponed and later cancelled due to a dispute regarding the disposition of his estate and remains between Coleman's adoptive parents, Price, and former business associate Anna Gray. Coleman's former manager Dion Mile was involved initially, but withdrew after Coleman's 1999 will, which named Mile as executor and directed that his wake be conducted by those with no financial ties to me and can look each other in the eyes and say they really cared personally for Gary Coleman, sick. Turned out to be superseded by a later one replacing Mile with Gray, and directing that there be no funeral service, wake, or other ceremony memorializing my passing. Questions were also raised as to whether Price, who authorized discontinuation of Coleman's life support, had the legal authority to do so. The controversy was exacerbated by a photograph published on the front page of the tabloid newspaper The Globe depicting Price posed next to a comatose, intubated Coleman, under the headline, "It was murder." The hospital later issued a statement confirming that Coleman had completed an advance health care directive granting Price permission to make medical decisions on his behalf. An investigation by Santoquin police was closed on October 5, 2010, after the medical examiner ruled Coleman's death accidental, and no evidence of wrongdoing could be demonstrated. In June, Coleman's remains were cremated, per his wishes, after a Utah judge agreed that there was no dispute regarding that issue, but disposition of the ashes was delayed pending a judicial decision on permanent control of the estate. While Coleman's final will, signed in 2005, named Gray as executor and awarded his entire estate to her, Coleman and Price married in 2007. Although they divorced in 2008, Price claimed in a court petition that she remained Coleman's common-law wife, sharing bank accounts and presenting themselves publicly as husband and wife, until his death, an assertion that, if validated by the court, would make her the lawful heir. In May 2012, Judge James Taylor ruled that while Price had indeed lived in Coleman's home after their marriage ended, their relationship at the time of his death failed to meet Utah's standard for a common-law marriage. The disposition of his ashes remains unreported. Price said that were she granted disposition, she would scatter the ashes at the Golden Spike National Historic Site in Utah as a tribute to Coleman's lifelong love of trains. Filmography, television, video games. Coleman portrayed a fictional version of himself in Postal 2, providing the voice and motion capture. He also portrayed Kenny Falmouth in The Curse of Monkey Island. Music videos: John Cena, Bad Man as himself, NSYNC, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays as Santa's elf, Kid Rock, Cowboy as himself, Moby, We Are All Made of Stars as himself, Raging Slab, Anywhere But Here as himself.